White Sox. White Sox. It's time to talk White Sox. Is Luisangel Acuña the future in center field? Okay. CHGO White Sox podcast next. Welcome into the CHGO White Sox podcast, coming to you live from Studio West of our West Loop offices here in the downtown of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, my producer, Sarah.
Hi.
Hello. And you made a very cool thumbnail that looks way too cool. I'm not sure if Brooks Baldwin and Luisangel Acuña are going to be on the team next year, but they are this year.
Shout out the spring training White Sox photographers who took those photos.
The best, and I don't know if you ran into it, are some of the times they have them hold their names, and those are very funny.
I always skip over those photos because it's just like goofy and weird that they do it.
I like, here's Marcus Timms holding up a sign that says Marcus Timms. So you know that it's Marcus Timms. Like that, it doesn't get better than that. That's spring training for you. Why do we need this? Can it not be edited out? Oh, well, that's baseball for you. And also, too, just looking at it right now, is Noah Schultz actually bigger? He said he's been eating like 5,000 to 6,000 calories or something like that. And now he's having like 600 or 700 grams of protein or something like that a day. And just looking at his last year's spring training photos compared to this year, I don't know if he looks like physically that much bigger. He's always had a massive neck. I think that's just with being 6'11". But he still looks like he's just got long arms. He maybe looks a little bit more filled out, maybe a little bit more in the lower half. It is hilarious when looking at this photo. His pants are completely see-through, but hey, that's just fanatics for you. But hey, maybe in the lines of spring training photos, maybe we got something in Noah Schultz, or eyes are being deceived. Anyways, on today's show, we'll talk about Luisangel Acuña. Is he the future of center field for the Chicago White Sox? Who are the other suspects, if not Luisangel Acuña? Is the future center fielder for the Chicago White Sox come 2028, 2029, even on the team? Well, yesterday, we compared the White Sox to the Minnesota Twins. We will continue that by comparing them to the in-division foe, the Cleveland Guardians. How do the White Sox line up via the rotation versus Cleveland? How do the White Sox line up before spring training, lineup-wise against Cleveland, and then bullpen-wise, do the Sox have a better bullpen than Cleveland? And then we will sneak in there a Hooters original take about Edgar Quero. I just watched the White Sox Talk podcast with Chuck, and he talked to Edgar Quero. Was really taken aback at just how mature he is. We'll talk about that later on in the show, but I was really, really taken aback by the 22-year-old Edgar Quero. Absolutely absurd. Anyways, let's get into Luisangel Acuña. Part of the White Sox trade for Luis Robert Jr., part of the salary dump for Luis Robert Jr. I don't think that it's completely fair to call it a salary dump because while the Mets took on salary, the White Sox didn't get completely nothing. Will Truman Pauly turn into something? Highly unlikely. At the major league level, probably be a great human in life. But, at the major league level, I don't think he's going to turn into much. Then with Acuña, he doesn't have any more options. So you really have one shot with him on if he will make it work or not. But he is interesting. Obviously, the bloodlines with his brother show the athleticism within the family. Ronald Acuña, former MVP. It does seem like it's clear Acuña, Luis, is much shorter than Ronald, less filled out than Ronald. So that's going to be something that holds him back. That's why he was tried out in the infield. There were talks that he seems more comfortable in center field and always felt like he was an outfielder. I don't know how true that is, especially because he's mainly played second base in the middle infield in his minor league time. But he says he's going to be able to take on center field fairly easily. And I am intrigued by his 2024. It's only 40 plate appearances, an extremely, extremely small sample size, but an average exit velocity of 91 miles per hour, a barrel percent of 9.1, which was above average for Major League Baseball in 2024. And he did have a poor launch angle sweet spot, which seemed to carry over into 2025. In those 40 plate appearances in 2024, 1 walk, 6 Ks, 308 average, 325 on base percentage, 641 slugging percentage. That'll play. Didn't run much in 2024, but that seemed to be the part of his game that developed a little bit in 2025. Again, the poor launch angle and not getting it on the sweet spot seemed to carry over into 2025, and it led to a lot of ground balls for Luisangel Acuña. 234 average, 293 on base percentage, 274 slugging percentage, 13 walks, 37 Ks. Not the worst walk to strikeout ratio. He doesn't seem to whiff a ton, does seem to have a little bit of chase issues, but does seem like he can foul off a decent amount and hold his own in the box. It's just mostly quality of contact. But the part of his game that did develop, 16 stolen bases, 1 caught stealing. And we saw last year, even when Robert wasn't humming at the plate, he was around a 60 OPS for a decent amount. He was able to show a decent amount of worth with positive defense in center field and the ability to steal bases. I mean, early on in the year, Luis Robert Jr. was leading Major League Baseball in steals. Will Acuña be able to get on base enough to steal bases? And will he be able to be consistent enough in that to make a difference? That's going to define his value. But he could tread water for a month being a sub 200 average player if he's able to provide defense in center field and if he's able to steal those bags when he's on. I'm not banking on him being the future, though. Obviously, 5'8" is just very diminutive for a center fielder. We saw that with Dominic Fletcher once he was acquired in that Christian Mena trade. He was very successful at playing right field. It helped having Luis Robert Jr. in center field next to him, but Fletcher was very good rating out in the DRS stat in right field. I think it was like 18 DRS, defensive run saved, in right field. But his ability to roam and play a rangy center field was inhibited by short little legs. And Luisangel Acuña has short little legs. I think his short little legs are going to be his downfall in center field. I think he's got a ton of speed. He's near, I think, 95 percentile when it comes to sprint speed in Major League Baseball. So he might be a little bit faster than Fletcher, but I don't know if that small body will be able to hold up for, obviously 162, but even beyond, if we're talking future, I don't know if this is going to be the future of the White Sox in center field. I know they're excited about him. Chris Getz is so excited and he forgets details about him. But I don't think there's much of saving Luisangel Acuña. Maybe Ryan Fuller can show a little bit of worth here and they can fix him in the box and maybe change that point of impact for him. Carlos Beltran and the Mets had dual hitting coaches last year. Both of them got fired. So maybe getting around a true hitting coach, a hitting coach worth his salt, like Showman and Fuller, he'll be able to turn into a stud. It seems like he moved back in the box in 2025. I wonder if they're going to try to slide him back up in the box. It seemed like he was fairly out in front of the ball. When you look at the bat tracking stat on StatCast, it said that he was like about an inch in front of the plate when he was making contact, and typically you want it a little bit deeper. He was about 2 inches less, like getting the ball closer to home plate in 2024. Obviously, it's only a 40 plate appearance sample, but he did have better numbers. I wonder if just letting the ball travel a little bit, seeing the ball deeper, would be a change for Luisangel Acuña, and maybe the quality of contact is a little bit better. He's not topping the ball out a lot. We saw that with Eloy Jimenez. He was consistently so out in front that he was just topping balls and not making quality contact. I don't think Acuña's, Squish 24 says the answer is no. I don't know if the answer is no, but highly unlikely, which is pretty no. I'm definitely a doubter. I don't know if I'm a hater, but I'm definitely a doubter of Luisangel Acuña. I am interested by Luisangel Acuña, and that's why it's not a salary dump, but it is a salary dump. I am concerned. Luis Robert Jr. gave you some certainty in center field. Obviously, for a lot of money, probably not worth his money. I love the Mets media being wowed by his BP. Like, just wait till he rounds first base. I already saw a quote too about how they're managing his lower half and how they already have noticed something about Luis Robert Jr.'s lower half that they're like worried and concerned about. So it's like, all right, well, do we already have damaged goods in Flushing? And there was something that I found interesting too in The Athletic when we're talking about this trade. Jason Stark of The Athletic asked anonymously Major League general managers what the best subtraction of the winner was. The resounding winner was Nick Castellanos with 6 votes. Second was Marcus Semien of the Rangers at 5, which I found funny. The write-up, too, was that him and Corey Seager couldn't get along, and these both seem like extremely quiet dudes that just do their job. So it's very weird that, like, this guy's being kind of scapegoated out of Texas when I think Texas just didn't want to pay him that much money. Framber Valdez got 3 votes from the Astros, and along with Framber Valdez, Luis Robert Jr. got 3 votes anonymously from executives on the best subtraction from the Chicago White Sox. I don't know if he's that detrimental to the team. Like, he's always provided somewhat of value, and he's never shown up to camp like out of shape. So just to comment on that, like, as a Sox fan, I don't feel good about subtracting Luis Robert Jr. and putting him in the camp of, Nick Castellanos, who can't hit, can't field, can't run, can drink beers in the dugout. Like, I don't think it's necessarily fair to Luis Robert Jr. However, again, if he is already being flagged by the Mets for lower body stuff, it's like same old song, same old dance. One thing I did want to go into the other suspects for center field, who could possibly replace Luisangel Acuña in the future if they were to move on, try to possibly send him down to AAA and clear him through the waivers. You'd look at Brooks Baldwin. He's in the thumbnail next to Luisangel Acuña. I think he's mainly too small. He does provide versatility, and that does seem to be his main strength. He's actually a switch hitter, unlike Luisangel Acuña. He can hit from both sides, Brooks Baldwin. He can play center, left, right, third base, second base, shortstop. That's where his true value is. He hit very well in the second half, and I'm interested in what Brooks can do. I think second half he was 112 weighted runs created plus. With that versatility and that ability to hit, he'd be extremely valuable. I don't know if Baldwin would ever be a starter, though. I think that's a guy that you would just love to be able to say, this guy needs a day off. That's where Brooks is playing today. And by that nature, maybe he plays 162 games, but he's never actually starting consecutively at a certain position. Baldwin's flexibility seems to be his true benefit. So I don't think he's like the future in center field. We were looking at past opening day lineups, and since 2020, Luis Robert Jr. has been their opening day center fielder. I guess the point that I was going to make was you never see that guy coming into camp out of shape. Obviously, there's something in the lower half that's concerning, but that's been his main career. But you never hear, Luis Robert Jr. is in the best shape of his life because he's just kind of always been in the best shape of his life. Diatribe, my bad. Outside of Baldwin, outside of Acuña, you could look and bring up Braden. We'll get into Braden a little bit after the break. I want to get into Fangraphs write up about him in their top 100. He was ranked as the top 100 prospect for Fangraphs. But I do think that he's more of a right fielder. I don't think that we're going to see Braden as a center fielder. I think part of the reason why, ESPN Fangraphs has him on, the back half of these prospect lists, sometimes completely off the top 100 entirely, is because of his lack of defensive ability, I think. I think he's a really good arm, but I don't know how rangy he is. He seems to be a decent athlete, but I don't know if he's like a superb runner. It doesn't seem like it's going to be center fielder Braden Montgomery. There's Jaden Fauske, who they took from Illinois last year, prep kid from NAS. But it seems like he's mainly a cornerback as well. It's probably way too early to make this comp, but he's maybe like a Bryce Harper in the way that Bryce Harper, I think, in his career, very early on, played center field. But once he gets 23, 24, 25, and just starts adding more and more muscle, and he might take longer to get up to the major leagues. I think he's only 18 too, so we'll give him 4 years. I think he's mainly going to be playing left or right field. It doesn't seem like Fauske is going to be small enough to play center field. He does seem like a very fast athlete and a decent athlete. He's also just extremely young, so we'll see how he grows older, but that's, again, 4 years down the line. The one that I'm putting as dark horses, and I don't think Sam Antonacci is going to be on this list at all. I think he's mainly a second baseman. I don't think Wolcott is going to be a center fielder at all if he makes it to the majors. Left or right fielder, or even by then, maybe he's just put on so much muscle that he's more of a first baseman. But that's what I see for Wolcott, not center field at all. I know that the Cease trade has looked terrible, but Samuel Zavala got decent grades and decent praise for what he did in the second half last year, and mainly he got a decent amount of praise for his glove in center field. The Venezuelan Winter League wasn't kind to our guy Samuel Zavala last year, but in Winston-Salem, 254 average, 360 on base percentage, 372 slugging percentage. I think he was a lot better in the second half as well. I think he picked it up a lot in the second half. Let me just go from July 13th. Sure. It won't load. Anyways, July at 260 with a 389 average and 356 slugging percentage. August, 296 average, 395 on base percentage, and then a 408 slugging percentage. And then really did pretty much the same thing in September. It's only 26 at bats, but let's not count out the 263 average, the 385 on base percentage, and the 421 slugging percentage. So Zavala really did do pretty decently in Advance A in the back half of the season and played pretty decent center field. So while the Cease trade doesn't look great with them DFAing Iriarte and him completely clearing waivers, Thorpe currently still recovering from Tommy John. Zavala, bounced back decently in Advanced A. We'll see what he does in Birmingham in the future leagues, but I wouldn't completely write him off. I don't know if he has enough pop, but I don't know if he's like a Riku Nishida where he might not be able to ever make it to the majors because his bat is completely popless. The final dark horse here, and then we'll go to the break. Jack McMullen of Marlins Radio, the play-by-play announcer over at Marlins Radio, does a Just Baseball podcast with R.M. Layton for Just Baseball, and he mentioned as a dark horse breakout candidate Everson Pereira. It seems like he's going to really have to thread the needle between playing right field, spotting and getting spot starts in center field behind Acuña. But if he's able to show out, and maybe they play him fairly strategically against lefties mainly, I could see Pereira, but it's going to be immediately. If Pereira's not hitting within the first month, it is possible that maybe they look at somebody else to make an impact in the outfield. But I wouldn't rule out Pereira. He's currently on the Major League roster. I think there's more of a chance that he makes an impact like that. He's only 24, Could he be the future center fielder? I wouldn't put Derek Hill in this conversation, but Pereira, it's a very tight rope to walk. But Pereira, if everything goes right for him, could be a future center fielder. He just hasn't shown that yet in his major league career. We're going to take a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We'll talk a little bit about Braden Montgomery after the break. We'll compare the White Sox to Cleveland, and we'll talk about Edgar Quero, all here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We want to let you know about our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. A lot of winter sports currently going on. My wife and I have gotten into figure skating. We got women's figure skating wrapping up on Friday, kind of like Alyssa Liu at plus 325. I also like Nakai. I don't know if Saramoto should be the favorite, but hey, you go make your determination over on the futures page. Also, Max, our pal over here's sweating over the American hockey game. Will there be another one? It's currently in OT. We don't know. Dun, dun, dun. But breaking news, what we do know is that whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. Sign up using code CHGO365. If you deposit $10 and place your first bet of $5, you get $200 in bonus bets, whether that bet of $5 wins or loses. And bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus. If you or somebody who has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in-app only. We also want to let you know about Hooters. If you are watching some winter sports and are looking to get away during lunch, or if you are looking to have some of the best wings on the planet, go check out your local Hooters. Right now, every Tuesday in February, your wing craving can make a difference. Hooters is donating a portion of chicken wing sales to Holy Family Schools, helping fund tuition, books, classroom supplies, and more for kids in under-resourced communities. And with the support of Chicagoland hotel families, they've raised over $1 million since 1992. So let's keep it going with our friends over at Hooters, because kids can't fly without wings. And you can also quench your thirst with the drink of the month. Tito's Strawberry Lemonade is a refreshing blend of Tito's handmade vodka, lemonade, and a splash of strawberry puree. It's only $8 all month long at Hooters. So go check out the best lunch spot in town, Hooters. Cheer on your favorite team or your favorite country at any of the 11 Chicagoland Hooters locations. And go check out the Oak Lawn location, the OG Chicagoland location. I don't know if that's real. Check them out at originalhooters.com. We are back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We will be talking a little bit more about Braden Montgomery. We will be talking about comparing the White Sox to Cleveland. But first, we want to do our original take presented by our pals over at Hooters. Visit their 11 Chicagoland locations. Shout out to Oak Lawn, the best Hooters in Chicago. But the original take brought to you by Hooters. Cheer on your favorite teams from any of the 11 Chicagoland Hooters location, or check them out at originalhooters.com. What I want to dive into, there's a player that we're going to talk about later on when we compare Cleveland and the White Sox. And I talked a little bit about him yesterday, and I was surprised at the projected WAR for him in 2026 at 0.6. I think I'm sleeping on Edgar. I think I'm sleeping on Edgar Quero. I think a decent amount of baseball is sleeping on Edgar Quero. I think you're sleeping on Edgar Quero. The one person that doesn't seem to be sleeping on Edgar Quero is Edgar Quero himself. I learned something in the Chuck Garfien White Sox Talk podcast. First off, I found it surprising that Walker McKinven, although he was brought over last year, did not take over the catching duties, and that seems to be something that he's managing this year. Quero specifically brought up that he's been watching tape with McKinven on Omar Narvaez, shout out, White Sox legend, William Contreras as well, that he's trying to change his positioning currently on receiving, and that he's trying to grab it quicker and then also start lower and try to grab up. They talked a lot about the ABS, and it does seem like it's going to be mainly up to Quero and Teal, the catcher, to make that decision for the White Sox. It won't be a pitcher tapping his cap to challenge a ball and strike call. It will be up to the catcher. And Quero said they were mostly going to be strategic about it, him playing in AA and AAA with this ABS system and the challenge system. They've noticed that it was a lot more helpful later on in the game. They're not going to use it in the first inning. They're not going to use it on the first pitch. They're mostly going to use it bottom of the inning, likely when they're up at the plate, because hitters only have 3 strikes, where, I guess pitchers only have 3 strikes as well, which I laughed at and thought about. But again, you have a lot more to play with being a pitcher. You can use a ball to your advantage. Paul Skeens was talking about how, if you have a miss, you could still use that to then, if you throw a sinker outside, you could then throw a slider off of that. And as long as they look like the same pitch for long enough, a guy might just completely bail out of it. And if you're able to pick that corner, boom, you got a strikeout. Also, Paul Skeens is very good. But I think the take that I'm trying to make here is that Edgar Quero is only going to be 22 come opening day. He won't turn 23 until April 6th. And while Teal seems to be a little bit more polished, a little bit more finished, I am absolutely surprised by the maturity of Edgar Quero. This is a Cuban baseball player that at 22 speaks extremely fluent English. I'm not trying to make that a massively big deal, but you look at Moncada, Luis Robert Jr., who did try and did make English-speaking media appearances at the start of 2025. Even Aloy, could talk fairly decently, and he really, made himself very affable to the White Sox community. And I think Quero, it's not an affability, it's just such a seriousness, and he is very, very well spoken. And I was just extremely surprised with his age. It seems like a guy that is just consistently trying to get better. He talked about, the framing part specifically. He talked about going to driveline as well. And he didn't say that, he's not a good hitter. He gave himself like a 6 or 7 on the year on performance-wise. But he feels like he could drive the ball a little bit more. But he talked about last year how, he knew at the plate you couldn't get him out, right? Like, he wasn't always necessarily going up looking for a single, double, triple, or homer. He was looking to get a hit and, right, like, not get out. And I thought that was very evident last year. So if he is able to, I think he's talked about changing his hip positions and driving the ball a little bit more. If he's able to hit those gaps that he was hitting with runners in scoring positions, shooting the ball to the right side when he was up as a lefty, shooting the ball to the left side as a righty, well, if he's able to shoot it to the right center gap, or he's able to shoot it to the left center gap, and that turns into a double rather than a single, I think he can really make himself an important player for the White Sox. I am very excited about Quero. I think you should be, and I do think that Quero is going to be an important part of this White Sox team as much as Teal currently is, because I do think Teal is obviously very impressive. I think you're very lucky right now to have two catchers and two catchers of this ilk, but I do think that the gap between the two isn't as wide as some think. I think that Quero's going to have a pretty nice season in 2026. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Make sure you're subscribed to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We appreciate CHGO Troll, Mr. White Sox, Sam. Sam asking about Acuña's ceiling. Could it be Leury 2.0? No. Again, that's more of Brooks. Brooks, again, gives you looks from both sides of the plate, playing every single position. Acuña's not going to be playing third base. It's going to be rare for him to play shortstop. It's going to be rare for him to play right or left field. Leury was able to play every single position. I don't think Acuña is going to be able to get on base as well, or as frequently as Leury did. Leury walked a decent amount, or at least didn't strike out, and had a pretty decent walk to strikeout ratio, if I'm remembering 2019 correctly. Nope, 139 to 21. 2021 was okay, 97 to 41. So he bounced a little bit back there, and was closer to 335. So 2019 definitely wasn't his year, but 2021 was. But yeah, I don't really ever see Acuña rocking like a 350 or 330 on base percentage where Leury was able to. And then CHGO Troll saying speed makes plays. I'm assuming about Acuña. Sure. If it's a ground ball to the third baseman, as long as he makes a routine play, you're able to get him out. And even then, too, you got the 90 feet from first to second base. He showed he was able to steal it 16 out of 17 times last year. But that's fairly replaceable in center field, or at least like last year, that was what Luis Robert Jr. was doing. And that's also what Michael A. Taylor was doing. It wasn't really that much of an upgrade to go from Luis Robert Jr. to Michael A. Taylor at some points of last year. Robert picked it up in the back half of last year, but him and Michael A. Taylor were just about as productive heading into July before Robert really turned it on. So I don't know if speed necessarily is going to make everything. It's important, and it's going to keep Acuña around. Again, if he's able to show off that speed, they'll be interested in the player. And if they feel like he's making work in the cage and he's able to just lift the ball a little bit more, they could try this project out for longer than I think they might. But yeah, no, I mean, it should be fine. They should be fine. I'm not really putting too many eggs in the Luisangel Acuña basket. All right, final one. I want to go into Braden Montgomery because I brought him up in the center field talk. It does seem like most prospect analysis or prospect, whatever the hell you call it, prospect writers do think that there's a lot of boom or bust with Braden Montgomery. That this player could be a superstar. This kid could be, a player that shows a ton of potential at the major league level and just never shows out, a la maybe like a Jordan Walker, Robert in a way, Jimenez in a way, or he could just completely bust. Here are the important parts of the write-up that I think you should be shared with. Montgomery crept towards a 30% strikeout rate in 34 games at Birmingham and ran a sub 70% contact rate on the season. For contact, there were 10 qualified big leaguers with a sub 70% contact rate in 2025, all of whom had 25 homer juice. Montgomery definitely fits that bill with a super developed lower half. He pins his lead foot in the dirt and fires his hips to create explosive rotational force, hard contact, 106.8 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocity, and elite bat speed that can catch up to any fastball. But timing up is a different matter, as he had a 30% miss rate on heaters in 2025, and in some video Montgomery against 92 to 93, you could swear he's missing out in front. Overall, he's vulnerable to velocity up and away as a right-hander, and he struggles with changeups from both sides. His barrel looking like it was fired out of a cannon often results in swings that move in and out of the strike zone fairly quickly. And a lot of Montgomery's work in pro ball has been focused on direction. I think also specifically, like when we're talking about Chalowski is able to put that barrel completely out, and it seems like it's the first thing that's leaving his bat. I think, part of Braden is maybe a little bit hand forward. That leads to those swings and misses where Chalowski, he's able to keep everything so tight. He's able to make fairly decent contact. And then finally about the defense part, Montgomery's defense is a similar place. He doesn't have the best acceleration, and he's still a springy average runner who can mix in at center based on his present physical ability. And the White Sox wide open outfield situation since trading Robert means there's no one left to push Montgomery to a corner other than himself. I just think that while you may see it in the beginning of his career, he's not the future, right? Colson Montgomery could be the future at shortstop. Depends on if he's hitting 35 homers or whatever, right? If he's playing above average defense at shortstop and 35 homers, I don't think you'll move away from that player at short. You can also easily slide him over to third base. But it seems like it's going to be a corner for Montgomery. It doesn't seem like he's like a next level athlete. It seems like he's a very elite athlete, but maybe not like superstar elite. It seems like, he might have a decent amount of the package there, but it might not be completely polished to be considered the future of any spot. Again, he's very, very intriguing, and he's got a ton of potential, and the White Sox are definitely going to see him in 2026. But I think it's possibly going to be for right field, and even come 2027, he just might be their right fielder. I think Braden Montgomery's more the future in right field than center field. Let me know why you don't have much faith in Burke, CHGO troll. Let's get into White Sox versus the Guardians after a break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We'll compare the White Sox compared to Cleveland. We'll talk about the Sox lineup compared to the Guardians lineup and the Sox bullpen compared to the Cleveland bullpen after the break here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. We want to let you know about our friends over at Four Seasons. Winter is here, so is your AC up for the challenge? It's 60 degrees in Chicago. You never know what you're going to get in Chicagoland, and that's why your home needs to be up for the Chicagoland Challenge. Now is the time to schedule your Four Seasons furnace tune-up because even though I'm wearing shorts right now, I will be very cold in March, and I will need the heat in my house. So get the tune-up now before you'll need to use it later. And if you're thinking about a whole home generator, they have you covered. At Four Seasons, they guarantee same-day installation for all your heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and generator needs with no extra charges for nights, weekends, or holidays. You can save up to $4,000 on furnace and comfort systems with Four Seasons heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. Furnaces start at $39 a month and furnace AC combos at $57 a month. Call today and save $50 from your trusted local experts. Four Seasons, your trusted local experts in heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. They've been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. We also want to let you know about our friends over at Ray CDJR. If you are in the market for a brand new car, go check out the only team we trust in Ray, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. And they have your chance to score a great deal at the Auto Show sales event. Head over to Ray CDJR on Route 12 today to choose from their huge inventory of new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles. And right now, get 0% financing on new vehicles for 72 months on new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram models. Plus, shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000 with a friendly team of brand experts at Ray CDJR. They're here to help you during each step of your car shopping journey, and you could walk into Ray CDJR confidently because you'll know the price you pay, or the price you see is the price you pay. The price you see is the price you pay. It's simple with Ray, with Ray's Price Promise. So go check out our partner at one of Chicago area's largest inventories and find the right vehicle for you. The team at Ray CDJR is the only one we recommend. For more information, visit Ray CDJR today on Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. We're back here on the CHGO White Sox podcast. Thank you to Sarah for producing the show. If you have any thoughts, let us know in the chat. Hit that thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. I will talk a little bit about the White Sox versus Cleveland here. We're going to talk a little bit about the rotation, and CHGO Troll mentioned he doesn't have much faith in Burke, mainly because of consistency. I'm going to take every single opportunity I can to talk about Sean Burke. So if you're going to bring up Sean Burke in the chat, you're just derailing the show. Not blaming you, CHGO Troll. I'm just taking ownership of who I am. And who I am is a Sean Burke head. And I'm always just going to look back to his last, I think it was 4 starts from the end of September to the the end of the year. 16 2/3 innings for Burke, 3.78 ERA. The FIP was very, very high at 5.30, but also a 31 K percent, a 12.2 walk percent, a 19% K percent minus walk rate. He just has some pretty nasty stuff, and I think that you're right that consistency is the thing that does him in. He is not a guy that was consistently in the zone before he was sent down to AAA, and that was one thing that he needed to do was just have more competitive at bats. And I think they challenged him to just throw everything that he could in the zone, and if it gets hit, oh well. And that's pretty much what happened for Sean Burke in September. The stuff graded out well over at tjstats.ca, 107 stuff plus. Again, 96 on his four-seam fastball, 82 on his curveball, an 87 mile per hour changeup, 88.5 mile per hour slider. He's throwing a sinker in there as well 7 times, not that much. And it's fair about the consistency thing. Like, you look at the slider, the shape is very inconsistent. There's one shape that seems to be inconsistent, but then there's also ones that just completely vary. I don't think he has like a really great grip, or at least knowledge of his grip on his slider. Consistency, again, like you say. And the curveball, though, is fairly consistent. The four-seam and curveball are very defined, where the other 3 pitches, the sinker, the slider, and the changeup, really aren't. And that's where hopefully Zach Bove can make his money worth, because if they are able to find some consistency in that shape for the slider, the absurd comment that I've always had is that I think he could be like right-handed Clayton Kershaw, which, again, is absurd. Like, 300-game winner, first ballot Hall of Famer, 3-time Cy Young. CHGO Troll mentions, the upside does look great, but just needs consistency. I agree, but I think if he does just go out and attacks at the level that he does, or at the level he did in the back half of the season, I think he could be dangerous. He was in the zone 61% of the time last year with his four-seam fastball, at least in the 16 2/3 innings. 61% of the time in the zone with his four-seam fastball. That's above average. The chase rate, nearly 40%. That's well above average. And the whiff rate, 26.7%. I was looking at, or I saw a tweet that was talking about Jacob deGrom's vertical angle approach in the zone with his four-seam fastball, and pretty much all of them are at -4. And on this list, it has Burke's VAA as -4.7. Didn't really show off as when players made contact in that 16 2/3 innings. There was an expected weighted on base of 547. But again, a 40% chase rate, 26.7% whiff rate. I'm very intrigued on Sean Burke. If there's one guy that can pop and have like a really great season for the White Sox in the rotation, I think it's more likely to be him than Shane Smith. But you're not wrong. Again, most of these guys need consistency. I don't even know about Murakami. I'm just really intrigued about Murakami. I don't know how his game's going to adjust. But like Vargas, Vargas didn't hit lefties at all, or at least didn't hit them for power. Like, if he's consistently going out there and just damaging lefties and righties, Vargas should be pretty damn good. Colson too. Like, if Colson's able to get the ball in the air, I'm not doubting him. Like, if we start seeing Colson become Luisangel Acuña and just start driving balls into the dirt, then I'll start getting concerned. As long as he's lifting the ball, he should be pretty damn consistent, or at least pretty damn good. Mydroth, I'm not really feeling confident on. I feel like any day he'll be replaced by Sam Antonacci. And then with Quero specifically, like, this guy seems like he's chasing consistency. And I know I'm definitely hyping him up by saying, or at least feeding into his own hype while him saying he's a professional hitter. But I saw that play out pretty decently last year. So I'm excited about professional hitter Edgar Quero. But even in the bullpen, Taylor needs consistency. If Taylor's consistent, Taylor might be the best arm in Major League Baseball out of the pen. But we'll talk about it. All right. Let's compare the White Sox and Cleveland before the show ends. If the White Sox are going to have a good year, it's because Minnesota and Cleveland has a bad year, and the White Sox are able to take advantage of it. Cleveland doesn't look that fierce. There's obviously the big one in J-Ram, but outside of that, this team does not look that fierce. You look at the rotation, the leader in Cleveland is Gavin Williams. He's projected to have 2.1 WAR. I actually don't know why that they say this, because Tanner Beebe is projected to have 2.5 WAR. So they have two guys that are projected to be over 2 WAR. The White Sox only have Shane Smith at 2 WAR. However, the lower half of the rotation isn't as fierce. Slade Sassoni, 1.2 F4, Logan Allen, 1.1 F4, Joey Cantillo, 1.5 F4. Martin projected to get 1.5 WAR, so that matches with Cantillo. K, 1.4 WAR. That outmatches Slade Sassoni at 1.2 WAR. Burke at 1.1 WAR. That matches Allen. There is the big discrepancy between Fetty and, let's just say, Tanner Beebe, that 0.6 to that 2.5. However, I do think that Fetty will be able to be sharpened up a little bit on the south side. I don't think he's going to be as good as 2024 and those first 20 starts that he had with the White Sox. But could he be like a one-WAR player? I don't think that's like out of the question. I think Cantillo is the one that's slept on mainly in this rotation. I think Gavin Williams could be pretty decent as well. However, if they deal with injuries, they don't have a ton rotationally to replace any of these guys, and their bullpen is fairly weak. Let's look at the bullpen real quick. They do have Cade Smith, one of the better arms in Major League Baseball. He's projected to be a 1.8 WAR player. That lines up similarly, though, to Grant Taylor. Grant Taylor, 1.6 WAR projected. So they do kind of have a player there that matches 1.6, 1.8. Slade, Cade Smith, and Grant Taylor should be able to be on the same level. However, their bullpen completely falls off. Hunter Gaddis could be a starting pitcher, and they've used him as a starting pitcher before, but right now he is their second best bullpen arm at 0.4 F4 projected. Seranthony Dominguez at 0.7 WAR for the White Sox. They have Sean Armstrong spelled the wrong way, SHAWN, 0.4 F4 projected. Seranthony Dominguez projected, Jordan Leisure projected to be at 0.6 WAR. Then they have Sabrowski projected to be 0.1 WAR. Matt Festa, not David, 0.1 WAR. Tyler Herron, I think, 0.2 WAR. Some guy named Brogdon, 0.0 WAR. And then Peyton Paulette, negative 0.1 WAR, where the White Sox have Newcomb, half WAR. Vassell, surprisingly, only 0.2 WAR, but I feel decent about Vassell, that he could be closer to where Newcomb is at half a WAR. Iser at 0.1, Hicks at 0.2, and then Jeddick Sampaio, the Rule 5 pick, along with Peyton Paulette at 0.0 WAR. So, as long as Paez is better than Paulette, this bullpen for the Sox should be better than Cleveland. The lineups where it really differs, they're a little bit thin in spots. They're also a lot better than the White Sox in spots. Leading off for them, Kwan projected to be at 3.4 WAR, Majdroth 2.1 WAR. Clearly, Stephen Kwan's a better baseball player than Chase Majdroth. You don't need WAR to tell you that. George Valera, 0.4 WAR. He's a younger player, younger prospect. He's not projected to obviously put up the WAR that Kyle Teel is at 2.1. Jose Ramirez, near a 5 WAR projected player. But Colson Montgomery, if he's able to repeat what he did in his first 71 games and do that over 162, he could be a 5 WAR player. It's absurd to say that out loud. He could. I don't want to, doubt him, but I don't think he's as good as J-Ram. But again, hey, he's hitting 40 homers and playing shortstop. He could put up a pretty successful season. Kyle Manzardo, 1.9 WAR compared to Vargas, 2.1 WAR, so it's pretty same there. Chase DeLauder, 2 WAR compared to Munetaka Murakami, 2.2 WAR, so Sox have a small edge there. Benintendi, 0.5 WAR. Arias, 1 WAR. Kefas for them, 1.2 WAR. Hayes, 0.9 WAR. Bo Naylor, 2.4 WAR. Quero, 0.6 WAR. Again, I think Quero is being slept on. And then Brooks Baldwin, 1.2 WAR compared to Brian Rocchio, 1.8 WAR. I think Cleveland is fairly similar, and it's, baseball's a game of staving off injuries, and if the White Sox are able to stave off injuries more than Cleveland, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland finishes below the White Sox. Cleveland is one of those teams, though, that even though they can look terrible on paper before the year, Jose Ramirez goes out and hits 35 homers, steals 38 bags, has an average of 327, and finishes third in MVP. It's not impossible for them to just be carried on the backs of a giant like Jose Ramirez, but hopefully we have two giants in our own right in Colson Montgomery and Munetaka Murakami. But we will have to wait and see. Baseball starts though in 2 freaking days. On the 20th at 2 p.m., baseball will be back in your life. The White Sox take on the Cubs. Jonathan Cannon will be on the bump for the White Sox as the spring training opener. I don't think that means anything. I think just Cannon's likely just ready to go. There was no injury for Cannon. They don't have any pitchers that are prepping outside of Dominguez for the World Baseball Classic, so they don't really have that issue, but we'll see Cannon, what he's able to do, and the other thing, too, we'll have StatCast data. So when you see us on Monday, we'll be able to talk about the game on the 20th. We'll be able to talk about the game on the 21st, and we'll dive into all of the data and all of what we know from these players in the very, very early sample of 2026. I cannot wait for baseball to be back. Very excited. We may get sick. You know, this is a good feeling. Baseball's just around the corner. Palms are sweaty, knees weak, mom's spaghetti.
Real quick, if you want to see these games live,
we have
a spring training event.
There you go, Sarah. We also have the CHGO road trip going on. If you do want to go out to spring training in Arizona, Glendale, from March 5th to the 8th, you can head over to allchgo.com/events. It's presented by our friends over at Shady Rays. Use code CHGO to get 35% off polarized shades. We would love to see you out there. You could do the whole gamut of us with us out there from the 5th to the 8th, or there's a la carte options where if you just want to go see the White Sox with us, you can come hang out with me at Camelback. Well, actually, this one's out at Camelback Ranch, but in Arizona.
Not a rumor anymore, but a confirmed is a Greg Braggs and a Lance Briggs and a et cetera of folks will also be out in spring training. So if you want to hang out with them, it's all part of the packages.
I think Lance is doing the golf thing though.
Right, but that's part of you can buy.
The whole thing is that we're doing the Sox thing the same time as the golf thing.
Oh, are you?
So we can't be go hang out with Lance Briggs while we wouldn't be hanging out.
Okay, don't listen to me.
Yeah, but no, Lance Briggs will be there. So there you go. And shout out to Akira Wells, getting in right at the buzzer with a great black cat as their profile picture. Glad I'm not the only person who thinks Quero can exceed the Banal expectations. I don't know that word. From the projection systems. Huge fan of his. Yeah, I mean, his ability to hit from the left and right, they'll pick his spots for him to be able to get in the lineup. But also, I mean, he's going to be able to be used as a DH more than Teal just because of that flexibility at the plate. And if he's able to show pop, they're going to play him. Again, this is a do or die system. So if they're going out and they're, doing extremely well, or if he's doing extremely well, they're going to play him. And then finally from GDM, no Sosa. This is at least just from the starting 9. Sosa right now is projected to make the team, but I mean, he's got no options and he doesn't play any defense, or at least doesn't have a position. So if a team calls and they want him to be their next first baseman or second baseman, the White Sox, I think, would gladly trade him, but he's going to be on the bench. And they'll work him in. I think they'll work him in against lefties, and maybe he'll see times against righties. But without a defensive position, he has no value. No value in baseball. They need that DH spot for Teal and Quero for them to get near 500 plate appearances for both of them. They are talking about using Benny at DH, which would take away from Sosa. I just don't know where Sosa's going to play. Maybe if Maidroth starts poorly, they put Sosa in. But Sosa's really going to have to take playing time, and he's not going to be given playing time in any way. So, even though he led the team in homers last year, he didn't do anything outside of hit homers. He made decent contact-ish. I think he finished around a 270 average. But he just does not walk. And his game is very, very limited to hitting the ball far from a very small, diminutive stature, which allows him not to play, the outfield at all. It's either second base or first baseman. So, Sosa really doesn't provide much value besides that pop, and that pop is, I think, hit or miss. I don't think he's going to hit 22 ever again in his career. Anyways, that's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox show. We have baseball coming up in 2 days, or now pretty much a day. So if you do want to see our thoughts, head over to @CHGO_White Sox. You can see me over at Sean_W_White_Anderson. That's my name, not White Sox. Thank you to Sarah for producing the show. I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.